Hello, Pod Smashers of the Internet, and welcome to another episode of
Pod Smash,
Where Gaming Goes to Grab a Beer.
we're your hosts, Penguin and Termite. I am Penguin.
And I am Termite, and we are a weekly video game podcast smashing together ideas that you care about with video games.
That's right. Tonight we're talking about banning games, banned games, game bans.
Get that game out of my face.
Yes, the subtitle of this episode was The Fine Line of Censorship.
Uh-oh.
So we will talk about that. Highlight that question of what is the difference between proper censorship and a banned game, or is there a difference at all? We'll dive into all that and more. But first things first, we are where gaming goes to grab a beer. So what are you drinking tonight?
Where am I drinking?
Where are you
I am drinking.
In
I'm
a
drinking
chair.
here.
In your house, yes.
Yeah. I am drinking a Star Hill beer, no surprise, as the brewery's walking distance. And they have a holiday pack. And I picked it up because this beer was not on their menu on tap, but it was available in the cooler. And because all of the beers were like Snickerdoodle and Spruce IPA. Yeah, they had a Snickerdoodle beer and a Spruce IPA. And I forgot the third flavor. And the one I'm drinking is a hot chocolate imperial stout. And it is actually
yum.
pretty yummy. It's very stouty with a very slight hint of what I think is just kind of like a vanilla cocoa-ish flavor. There's a little bit of a hint, so it's not overly sweet at all. In fact, it's more stout than I would say sweet, but lots of vanilla in there. And if this was a milk stout, it would be perfect, but it's not. You would think hot chocolate imperial stout. Mm-hmm. It's not a milk stout, so it doesn't have that like.
This is crazy, and I'm going to say some people, meaning this is me growing up. Some people make hot chocolate with just water and the powder.
Yeah, it's most people. I thought.
Oh, is that what most people? Okay, well that's what I did growing up. But my wife introduced me to the concept of doing it with milk.
Mm-hmm. And it's so much better.
It's going back. It'll never go back. Never go back.
So much better.
Make hot chocolate with milk and never go back.
Yeah, definitely. So that's what they've done here. This is a hot chocolate imperial stout made with water, not milk.
Well, but all beer is made with water.
And it's fine.
Technically, milk is made with water too. It's just
you think
like the body is using water to make. So a cow's body is using water to make milk.
Exactly. A little protein added to it, a little dairy,
fat,
whatever. Fat, yeah. Moo. But that's
enzymes
it. That's what I got.
And body cells and all kinds of stuff. Cool.
I haven't seen you pull a single beverage up into the frame of your camera at all. So I have. You're not even drinking right now.
I'm not drinking anything.
Hey,
I am. Behold, I am drinking. Ooh. Speaking of milk stouts, just drinking
there
a left-hand milk stout here. Nitro.
Solid choice.
Yeah, my parents are here this weekend, and my dad had to go to Food Lion to grab batteries for all the toys that my kids got because we did an early Christmas with my folks, and I was like, while you're out, grab booze, and he did. So he doesn't really drink beer very often, so he was like, "What do you want?" And I was like, "I don't know, get like a stout or something." So this is what he got. And I was like, "Solid choice,
very solid choice." I'm
like loaded with like alcohol because they didn't drink very much of the ciders they ended up buying anyways, so I'm like loaded with alcohol in the house.
Very
nice. Likely not last very long. Normally it would in prior times it would have lasted a while, but now my wife is no longer nursing our daughter, so she's back to consuming alcohol again, and not like excessively in any stretch of the imagination.
She's just going crazy, getting benders every weekend.
But we're just both of us are now drinking more casually in the home, and so therefore stuff doesn't last in the fridge very long. So
that sounds fun.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
I remember that excitement. We're done breastfeeding. All right, let's top the wine. Let's go.
Exactly. So, anyways, so that's what I'm drinking. A milk stout. So it's just this is to me like it's like the lowest of the good stouts, but it's still a good stout. Meaning it's like it's like a baseline solid stout. You just you can't go wrong. If a stout is worse than this, it's bad. If it's better than this, it's probably pretty good.
Yeah. Well, so there you go. People would probably think that Star Hill's chocolate imperial stout that I'm drinking is bad, because I would say what you have is better than what I've got.
Oh yeah, okay, interesting.
That's the thing with Star Hill though. They're like bottom to middle tier. They're not amazing.
I've never been blown away by anything Star Hill's made, but it's not bad. It's better than Coors. So.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I suppose we should probably talk about what happened at the Game Awards.
Yes.
So, winners aside, as we mentioned last time, we've been, obviously when we recorded last week's episode, we were behind. So now we have caught up, and winners. Elden Ring won. I was right about that. That's all water under the bridge. That's all just like that's such old news, old discussions there. Let's talk. I want to talk about the Crasher.
Oh my
and
gosh.
this whole thing. So if you
Yeah.
are not familiar, if you don't watch the Game Awards, this was a year you missed out on. I mean, in general, I guess we could probably talk about in general, like conversations about winners, and like anybody can go Google that stuff. Like I want to talk about like the quality and even announcements, right? I just want to talk about like the quality of the show, but then I also want to talk about that strange, odd, can't
Ending.
like predict like button right on the end, and when it's one of those things where like, then you think like twice about it and it's horrifying. So yeah, we'll save that part for last, but I assume I know you have thoughts on the overall quality of the show, so I want to hear
Oh
them.
yeah. Do you want to hear that?
Yeah,
Right
yeah,
now?
I'll start with
Before
that.
we talk about the kid? Okay, sweet.
Yeah, start
so
with that before we talk about the kid.
Yeah, by far, this 2022 Game Awards is the best show Jeff Keighley has ever done. And I'm talking the Gamescom opening night lives, the Summer Games Fests, and all of his previous Game Awards. This year's Game Awards was phenomenal. He had previously set expectations to be like, the show is going to be shorter, and it's going to have fewer ads, but they're more quality. And we're like, okay, so there's going to be ads and it's going to be shorter. Because some of the problems and complaints we've had in the past was the speakers weren't able to, or the winners weren't able to give speeches, or they weren't allotted enough time. There was way too many ads, way too much. And then it was a whole bunch of filler stuff. And the announcements weren't like super good. Somehow Jeff Keighley managed to not allow any leaks to happen. And we had hits like Hades 2, Horizon Forbidden West DLC,
Ken Levine's new game,
Judas.
Remnant
oh my gosh.
2.
Remnant 2. Like, not only were these like AA indie games announced, which there usually is at these kinds of things, but they were quality ones that we all cared about. Like, it was amazing. And then of course we got like a Final Fantasy 16 update, and all of the guest presenters of all the awards were wonderful, except for that maybe Al Pacino intro, which was kind of hilariously awkward.
Strange. That dude was lit. He was on something for sure.
He was on something. But yeah, it was so well paced. There was so many good things happening throughout the whole show that there really wasn't a lull where people would tune out and like leave. Like there's always this middle 40 minutes where we're just like, oh gosh. And so like all of the esports athletes and all of the like the trending gamer or the content creator stuff was all like kind of done at the front, and
they just their own awards.
They do, yeah, exactly.
Done. That should be done.
In the past, there was a whole lot of space given to those awards, and we have that opinion of like they should have their own awards. Like, let's not do that here.
Thing.
So this time was the best compromise. It recognized them all at once and very early and very quickly, and off the stage they go. So yeah, those are my thoughts. I think this was a very solid quality Game Awards, and
I agree. It does seem like they took the criticisms to heart, and the show still went pretty late, right? But like, yeah, it wasn't just you don't see ads, you don't see like movie trailers at the Oscars, right? Like that's not what awards shows are for. Now, granted, awards shows still have a pretty the idea of awards shows, especially like the Oscars and the Academy, like that's not the Oscars, but like the Academy Awards, the Golden Globes, like those things have like a really dark origin. They were essentially made to prevent studios from like unionizing against the people who like or sorry, not the people, the creatives from unionizing against. So they created a competition so they wouldn't start having conversations about unions.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyways, despite the dark origins of award shows, you still don't see that. They try to be this sort of prestige thing about like trying to really focus on the artistry of filmmaking. And the Game Awards was just like, for several years, the criticisms were like, it's E3 light, right? It's just like they put so much emphasis on the announcements and not emphasis on the actual winners and the artistry, right? And that definitely, like, between the Halsey, like they had multiple live performances, they had great, like, guest presenters, and yeah, I mean, really just showing up. I mean, I felt like there was a much bigger focus on like, for better or for worse, there was a better focus on like celebrity appearances, right? Like whether it was Al Pacino or Idris Elba or Animal, right? Like again,
Yeah.
even though that's kind of, like some people might criticize that as kind of gimmicky, at the same time, they're at least focusing more on creatives as opposed to just ads, buy our
Right.
stuff,
Yeah.
buy our stuff, right?
Yeah.
I'll take Animal making dumb jokes about Animal Crossing on the stage like
Any
all
day
day,
over
every day over like another
pre-order now, early
right,
access, wish list.
yeah, exactly, another Game Pass ad, please. Right. So like issues of game, like discussions of Game Pass's quality aside, I still don't want it shoved down my throat.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, exactly. I thought that was all better. And then giving time for speeches. I mean, they had to play a couple of people off the stage, and Christopher Judge totally derailed everything, but in the best possible way. He took the longest speech, but he deserved it. He deserved it. Of all people who you want to hear talk, I wanted to hear, like, I definitely don't want, like, developer who, like, hides in there. Like, I mean, I love Hidetaka Miyazaki. He thinks he has an amazing mind. I don't want to hear Hidetaka Miyazaki speak for 30 minutes. I don't even really want to hear Hideo Kojima speak for, like, 10 minutes, but Christopher Judge, I'll hang on any word that dude says. So again, just allowing them to have that time was.
How about that moment they brought out all of the Last of Us people? Troy Baker.
Oh, that was silly, but
awesome.
I also loved it. Right, like
that was really cool with the show and all that.
It was so cheesy, but I thought it was cute as well.
It was cute. But we had Baldur's Gate 3 announced. We had Diablo 4 like release date kind of window.
Death Stranding 2.
Death Stranding 2 was announced. The successor to Celeste was announced. I said Hades 2 earlier. I mean, just like hit after hit. Tekken 8, if you care. Street Fighter 6. There was a new trailer for the Mario movie. Just like. Right. And Jedi Survivor, of course, Star Wars.
Oh my gosh, Jedi Survivor. Yep, that was there too.
So many good things that we all care about. And it was spaced evenly. That's what I like. It wasn't just front loaded or end loaded. It was just like, we're going to sprinkle the things and we're going to keep the energy going with the celebrity. But you mentioned the celebrities being like more prevalent now. If you think back just like 5 years ago, a celebrity appearance was like, oh gosh, here we go. Who did they pay to like talk about video games that they don't really care about? But I think that's kind of a product of the pandemic. Because I've noticed with a lot of in the gaming industry, Twitch streams, podcasts, etc., like the celebrities didn't have anywhere to be. They weren't acting. They weren't doing stuff. So they were actually interacting with the gaming community. And so there was so many like little small interviews. Like Gary Whitta did his Animal Talking, which is a talk show in Animal Crossing. He had like T-Pain on and like all these cool like little celebrity interactions. And Jeff Keighley was having his stuff. He was doing like live things before the first Summer Games Fest. But anyway, I think that was like maybe an impetus. Maybe that was a reason that here we are. And it validates gaming as an art form, I think, more when you start to include Hollywood. As cheesy as that might sound, do we have to have the upper echelons of our art society to like affirm games?
Hollywood,
no, we don't need that. Right? No, we don't need that. But it does change the public perception just from the masses' perspective. It's like when you see Nintendo demonstrated on Jimmy Fallon, it's no longer the neckbeard in the basement playing Nintendo. It's like, oh, Jimmy Fallon's playing this. Like,
Conan, exactly.
Yeah,
they have all those guys.
So,
well, I think that they, again, like even Christopher Judge said it, right? Like he's like, if I had known it was a video game, I wouldn't have taken the job, right?
Yeah, it was like, perfect. Yeah,
and so the fact that even he's come around to like, not even him, right? This is wildly successful for him, but again, it just goes to show that like God of War would have started production in 2012, 2013. Yep. And like the landscape was so totally different back then that actors like Christopher Judge wouldn't have been caught dead auditioning for it, much less taking the role. But then now he considers it a transformative experience. And so anyways, that's cool. With a little bit of time we have left for this, let's talk about the kid. So right at the end, the game of the year, Hidetaka Miyazaki for Elden Ring got up, they did their speech, and then like the camera panned away because everyone thought it was over, and like I remember seeing like they panned to Joseph Ferris because he did the announcement for it, and they were trying to like find Jeff Keighley, I think, but then like there was this moment of confusion where the camera was cutting all over the place, and then it was like it zeroed in like, oh, someone's still talking, and it was this kid. It's like a teenage kid who like leaned into the microphone and just quickly said something. Like it was really fast, but something. My reformed rabbi, I'd like to thank my reformed rabbi, Bill Clinton. And then like, that was it. And everyone was like, was that like one of their sons? Like he didn't look Japanese. He was speaking English. What the heck was that? Yep. It turned out it was a stage crasher.
Yep.
And you went like down the rat. You were like frame by frame analyzing to see when, and you found like the moment he came like down the aisle. And there was an interview later where he said that he actually sat he thought God of War was going to win, so he snagged seats close to. He was like right behind Christopher Judge and Sonny
Oh wow!
Suljic,
So he
whatever.
planned this.
But then he freaked out when they weren't, so he had to like go catch up with them, and he did, and they didn't stop him, and so it brought all these conversations up. Number one, trying to identify what was this kid's motive, and that's a whole rabbit hole I don't necessarily think is healthy to go down. But like some people are like, oh well, he's if you look at his YouTube channel, it's all like Hong Kong protests, like pro Hong Kong. But then like the Bill Clinton thing is a very specific. Right, Reformed Rabbi Bill, like connecting Bill Clinton to Judaism implies a very, very, very specific conspiracy theory that has to do with like that's very connected to anti-Semitism, and it's like, so he's like anti-Semitic and also pro Hong Kong. Like what? To me, it smacks. Everything smacks of like, I mean, to afford Game Awards tickets, smacks of like rich, spoiled California kid who clearly has more time on their hands and then just like takes things way too seriously. Either way, the bigger question is security, right? Security at this event, security at these events. Like I told you guys, I think we talked about it on our Discord with some of our folks. And I remember saying like, I would, if they were concerned about like derailing the show, I would rather see the dude get just body checked by some security guards, right? That would have made everyone feel more comfortable because yes, even though he didn't do anything other than crash a speech, he could have.
Right.
If he had, maybe they check weapons at the door. It doesn't matter. He could have shanked, right? He could like, there's so, what are they going to do? Take a hairbrush? He could have whittled it down during the whole long show and then stabbed a dude, right? Like,
right.
So who knows?
Or he
right?
he could have said something actually abhorrent, like terrible,
right?
Which would have been like a dog whistle to like give.
Well, he did arguably, right? Some people there's still debate as to what he was trying to say or not. But if what he said is credibly anti-Semitic, or even if it's not, even if his intention was not to say something anti-Semitic, but he still triggered anti-Semitic sentiments, it still was unacceptable and completely ridiculous. And yeah, he should have just been body checked for the safety and the general well-being of the show. Yeah. To me, it's better to just like do the quote embarrassing thing of like having a security guard just completely like drop kick a dude. And honestly, everybody wants to see that anyways, right? But yeah, no, it was unacceptable. And that's Microsoft Stadium, so the Microsoft Theater or whatever. Yeah. So that's a black mark as far as I'm concerned on Microsoft's hosting, right?
Yeah, it's going to be super vetted next year. It's maybe tickets will be like. Well, what was interesting, and I heard this on the What's Good Games discussion about the Game Awards this morning, about how the tickets, the seating arrangements, really did mingle the public and the games industry personnel. So like, I could have gotten a seat right next to like Greg Miller from Kind of Funny. Right. Like, there's nothing to stop that from happening. And like that in and of itself, given like their public platforms and the things that they say and how much death threats and toxicity there are in general in the industry, like that makes everything about the Game Awards seating already kind of like sus, if you want to use Among Us terms. Like lack of security is kind of a thing. And then to have this event happen where someone can actually get up on stage during the Game of the Year announcement, which is the biggest award of the show, and follow them all the way on stage and stand there without anyone questioning him or stopping him. Like, how did he even get down the aisle, right? Or even up on the first step of the stage? So next year is going to be entirely different.
In the footage, I'm sure you can see, I think you can see like one of the presenters like put his hand on his shoulder and like it wasn't an unfriendly gesture, so that like to the point where you could interpret it as like, oh, maybe he does know him. But in hindsight now, it's like, no, he was probably trying to be like, what are you doing? Please go. Yeah. But then it's just like, but like everyone's clapping and the show must go on, right? Like with this, there's this mentality, and we need to break that, right? We need to break that as aspect of the show must go on. No, it mustn't. If there is danger, right? Like if there is someone doing something they shouldn't, then no, please stop the show for the safety of, if in this case you want to call them performers. So yeah, ridiculous. So that was the Game Awards. I mean, like I remember talking, I saw people on Reddit talking about it the next morning. And in every thread, it would be like someone would, especially in the FromSoft community, right? Like, because they were glued, But then you'd see people be like, wait, what happened? I feel like I missed something, right? Like, and it really was a blink and you miss it moment, all things considered, right? I'm sure there were people that were like, as soon as they saw Elden Ring 1, okay, Elden Ring 1, cool, awesome, I'm going to bed. And then they missed that. And it's just like, crazy.
Yeah.
And it's good that things happen like that and no one does get hurt, because now they can fix it before someone does. But
Yeah, it
by
could
no
have been
means does
horrible.
that make this kid a hero or anything, right? Like,
Yeah.
no, don't blame. Yeah, it's silly. So cool. Well,
That can be DLC. Let's do favorite things.
potentially dangerous. Yeah, that's fine. We'll do favorite things. Potentially dangerous people who play stupid games and win stupid prizes are not our favorite thing, but
80-bit pod smash is our favorite thing.
80-bit pod smash is our favorite thing. I want to go first.
Okay.
Favorite things is a
Favorite
segment of our
things.
show where we talk about something that we have discovered or ruminated upon, and that got us to provoke our thoughts or that we're super excited about. Either way, it's something that we hope inspires you to go find your next favorite thing. I had a lot of favorite things this weekend. Like I said, my family came for Christmas. I also had a really good D&D game. I did have to cancel reschedule from Saturday to Sunday at the last minute. But thankfully, my crew is pretty cool, and all, for the most part, were able to make it. But if I could boil down, like, the one thing that I probably just like squealed with joy about was my sister got me a set of skew dice. The skew dice are mathematically fair, but non-polyhedral. So like, this is a D4. It's just like,
it looks
warped.
all stretched out.
It's all stretched and warped, and this is the it's less easy to see with some of the higher numbers. This is a D12. It's like,
It looks like a D20 but smaller.
You can
and lopsided.
See,
Yeah,
it's like lopsided. And then hold on, the D20 itself is like a top, so it's like rounded.
Oh wow, look at that.
And they're, all of them are still mathematically fair, but they're just I call them, they're not technically non-Euclidean, but I call them my non-Euclidean dice. That's a term from H.P. Lovecraft's work. He would always describe, like, there's a Euclidean geometry is a thing, and usually involving like straight edges and very visually appealing. Like, most of our buildings are Euclidean geometry.
Yeah.
Non-Euclidean geometry then is supposed to be this alien thing where things don't make sense. They're warped and bent at a weird angle. So these aren't technically non-Euclidean, but they are also, I call them non-Euclidean because it's more fun to connect them to Lovecraft. Plus, it's like, now that they're a special kind of dice, I will 100% be superstitious about them. Even though I acknowledge that they are mathematically fair, they will either have a reputation. They'll have a reputation for myself as either being cursed or blessed. And possibly even depending on the game. Like, if we're doing a dark game, I might be like, oh, I have to get my skew dice out, guys. I have to. As we're fighting a Lovecraft monster right now, I have to, weird with weird. But if we're doing like a very serious thing or lighthearted thing, it's like, no, don't get the skew dice out. They're cursed. So, like, I want to lean into that superstition because it's more fun to pretend like my dice are special when they're actually just dice. So yeah, I'm excited. It's one of those things where it's like a permission to be superstitious. So anyways,
it is. And while you were reading, I was so interested that I was looking up what skew dice are, and I have to read this paragraph. It's so mathematically nerdy. It's amazing. And I don't even understand it, but I know I can appreciate it. Skew dice are based on the trigonal trapezohedron. Trapezohedron, which is a cube, is a special case of a trigonal trapezohedron. Can't even read this stuff. We distorted the faces in such a way that they remain flat and are congruent, which means each one has the same size and shape. In addition, the distorted polyhedron is an isohedron, meaning that the symmetry group of the polyhedron is transitive on the faces. Despite their bizarre appearance, this means that skew dice are just as fair as regular dice. Any math nerds out there, please help me with that, because that's amazing.
Words you said sound like dragon names to me, like, and also, I am not a math person, but something about like the sentences you just read just sounds like badass, right? Like, I want to be a kind of person who can just like spout that out, and like, even if it's all BS. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's accurate. I just want to be able to say it so people are like, wow, he's so, like, I don't have to be smart. I just have to sound like I'm smarter than you. That's all it is. I love it. I also loved your candle snuffer or whatever.
Oh yeah,
from Danforth. And we work metal by hand. I was like, metal by hand is Danforth Longwood's band name.
Yeah.
I think Ryan actually found that store. It's a pewter maker in Williamsburg. And so he like sent me a picture of the store and said, "How did you do that? How did you bring him into the real world?" I said, "That's what happens when you leave the character sheet blank. He's become more powerful than I can ever control."
They make like Christmas ornaments and stuff. They're actually in Vermont. I'm looking at their website
gotcha.
now. Yeah,
They must just have like a shop in,
they must.
or maybe it's a whole separate Danforth.
No, this is the
store.
same company.
Oh,
I'm looking at.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
they make all kind of stuff. They make vases and they make measuring cups and they make oil lamps and barware. Oh, they make barware, dude.
Oh, it is Danforth Longwood. He's real.
He's real.
He's real.
And there's the red Solo cup. They make that out of metal.
Out of like wow.
Yeah,
yep.
You can get one of those from Danforth.
I'm terrified now. It will now be all the metal in my home will be Danforth metal from now on.
It's great.
What's your favorite thing?
My favorite thing is we had a spontaneous date night. And I say spontaneous because that is usually the antithesis to children. Like, we have kids, we have to plan ahead to do anything fun. But neighbors in our neighborhood were like, hey, we got a babysitter. We're going to go see a movie. Do you want to send your kids over too and take advantage of the same block of time and do whatever you want to do? And I was like, that sounds amazing. Yes, let's do that. So we did. So we just moved the kids down the pedway, down our little walkway, and we're like, see you later. And my wife and I went to Potter's Craft Cidery. Have you had anything from them?
Mm-mm.
No. So they are, of course, like 25 minutes away here in Charlottesville on, I don't even know what area, but they've got the whole, it's a cidery, but the vibe of the place might as well be a winery. As far as like, it's kind of highbrow, it's fancy. You go in, there's clearly this is like a venue building you can rent. They have the whole outside terrace and like they do the flights. They don't serve food, but you can get like charcuterie plates and cheeses and other like chips and crackers and things. So we went down the menu and got like a whole flight. Best quality cider when like the vibe meets the quality of the drink. So like Bold Rock, which I love, is a solid like every day, I just want a cider right now. Let's get that. It's apples from the Blue Ridge, right? But if you want something fancy, Potter's Craft Cider is where it's at. Ooh, and of course, we got a flight, and then I went back and got a pour of their like flagship cider. But it was a nice night, just the two of us. And it's great that it's spontaneous because usually with date nights, there's always something we need to discuss. Like, oh, we're going to have a date night on the calendar. It's here. Let's just pencil this conversation about our life to then. And then like date night becomes like more heavy or it's intentional and it's good. That's not a problem. I'm not complaining. But what's cool about the spontaneity of it all is that we're able to just talk about like whatever's on our mind at the moment, like whatever's happening right now. And it just felt like we were jiving. It was awesome. So we had a great time away from the kids. And it was only like 2 hours. It wasn't like this huge date night. It was just enough time to go out and get some cider and come back. And it was wonderful. Cool. So that's my favorite thing.
That sounds good. That sounds good. I want Potter's House Craft Cider.
Potter Craft Cider. No house, just Potter's Craft Cider.
Potter's.
The Potter House is the Fredericksburg Baptist school, that preschool that Sam went to.
Must be why I got confused, because I'm sure I've heard those words come out of your mouth before.
Not just me, lots of people but yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, yeah, we'll skip DLC. Sorry, DLC fans.
Game Awards was that.
Well, it became that. So
yeah.
Cool. Well, that leads us our main topic for the night, which is we are talking about banned games and banning games and game bans. They're all the same thing. It's basically, and we'll, I guess, start there with what are game bans. It's basically, when some organization or another, more often than not, it's in the context of governments, but it could be even like Steam banned this game, right? Because it could be a platform or whatever. But yeah, it's when they like refuse to allow that game, again, whether legally or just whether it's just they refuse to allow it to be purchased. But it's when a game is basically removed from the shelf or removed from legal purchase or legal sale. And yeah, because it's banned. You can't do it. You can't sell that here. That's essentially what it is. And I guess in some cases it would be you can't play that here. You can't do that here, right? Like, meaning like if you were caught with a copy of it, you could be in trouble. So yeah, I mean, it could refer to it in anything to a private like school, right? Like if you're at like a boarding school or whatever, and they ban these games, technically that's a game ban. But more often than not, we talk about it in terms of governments or platforms or stores. So yeah, that's kind of that first question, what does it mean to ban a video game, and what organizations tend to ban video games? So then we'll sort of pivot into that next question. Are there any other organizations that you can think of that ban games, and how does that ban or banning process differ between those types of organizations? So using that example of like platforms and stores versus governments, right? If a platform bans a game, it's just, we're not selling it anymore, right? It's essentially what Sony did temporarily. They put a temporary ban on Cyberpunk, right? We are not selling it. It's not welcome on our storefront, right? Steam,
Right.
for a long time, was controversial because they didn't ban games from their store and they greenlit so many games. And then they eventually came around to having to do that because the content was getting so abhorrent. They're like, okay, fine, we have to ban from our storefront. So it doesn't really affect anything. You just can't, right? It's just a means by which we're no longer going to distribute it, right? So it's not like if you can find it on 4chan and download it off of, oh shoot, what's it called?
Pirate Bay?
Pirate Bay. I was thinking like even just downloading it from one of those like deposit repository sites, then yeah, you could feasibly still do that. No one's stopping you, but it's wholly different than in that case from like a government ban, right? If a government of a country, a sovereign nation bans a game, it's because they have said it is against the law to purchase, sell, or play this game in our country. I don't know about that last one. Like if you're able to like if they caught you with it. Right. Okay. Yeah. It depends on the country. Yeah. So yeah.
Right.
So it can vary wildly depending on the laws of the country, but nevertheless, it is like this is no longer welcome in our sovereign nation. So those are wildly different like severities of bans. So we'll probably kind of talk about both types, but this conversation is most relevant in regards to government bans, right? Governmental kinds of sovereign states banning games. So, anything else you wanted to add to that question before we move on?
Well, yeah. I mean, we just kind of highlighted starting at like the government is the highest level. Like the government could say no, and then that has to affect everyone else down the line. But down the line are individual companies and organizations, and that can be retailers. So like Walmart, Target, Best Buy, Amazon, they can put their own like restrictions on what games are on their storefronts. And then of course you have the digital storefronts with Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, eShop, all that stuff. And they can put their own restrictions on their own stuff. And then like what freedom of speech means and where does that roll in? And like, yeah. And then you have federal government for the United States. Then you have state government that's unique to our country. But then like other countries in the world don't have First Amendment protection. So like there's all this crazy things happening from a global perspective because if you're like trying to release a game yourself, you have to think about how many countries in the world and how can this be distributed. So I can't imagine the amount of people behind the storefronts at PlayStation just to manage like all of that. So it can get crazy, it can get complicated. And you just mentioned even like 3 different types of bans. It's like you can't purchase it, you can't own it, or you can't sell it. Right. And that's like, so you can even go down to the minutia and the granularity of what those bans mean. So yeah, I guess we'll get into all that. So that was it. Yeah.
Cool. Well, so let's talk about why, though. Let's kind of, we talked about what a ban is and kind of how they work, I suppose, all the different areas and severities of them. But why would a game be banned in the first place? Why would a game be forbidden to play? And then let's talk about good, bad, and complicated. What are good reasons to ban games? What are bad reasons to ban games? What are complicated reasons to ban games? So let's start with good reasons, right? Good reasons why it might be good that Steam started banning games from their storefront, right? I would say for me, off the top of my head here, and though I'm sure after we talk for a little bit, we'll generate more ideas, but the ones that kind of stood out to me were like any game that like the content is meant to like for lack of a better term, content that's meant to trigger, right? To trigger trauma, to just like for the sake of shock factor. And we're not talking about like little things, right? When it's a little peppered in to like make a point, an artistic point, that's one thing. But when it's just like, I'm going to make a game about X trauma just so I can trigger the libs or whatever, right? Like that's probably a game that's going to end up being banned because it's just like, it's solely meant to, harm people, right? For all intents and purposes, like psychologically harm them. And then furthermore, the kind of even higher step is like any game that would incite violence against a people group, right? That is something that in my mind I'm like, yeah, ban it. There are some that might argue that free speech would imply that you should just let, quote, the free market determine, right? Like if a game has got this content in it that's so abhorrent, then why not just let it be drowned in, by the dollar? But we've like last several years have demonstrated that is not how it works.
It doesn't work. Yeah.
That doesn't work, right? Because
Yeah.
there's always going to be a subset of people that will push it. There's always going to be a subset of people that will be naturally drawn to it. And we as a society determined a while ago that there are some exceptions to free speech, right? Any free speech, any quote speech that incites violence against people, that's trying to take away the right to life, so to speak, of another person. So therefore it is forbidden speech. And this is all falls in that vein of like, you are literally trying to like take away people's well-being by just making this thing. So yeah, ban it, get it out of there.
Yeah.
So
and I'll use an example that because we're a family-friendly podcast. So if you are an adult listening to this, you can use your imagination for extraordinarily adult explicit content that has no part or no space to be entertained. We'll just leave that there. There's things out there that just you don't need that out anywhere. That doesn't need to be created. But I want to use this the Pokemon trading card game that came out on Game Boy Color, which was the video game version of the card game, right? The Saudi Arabia folks didn't like it and they banned it. And you might ask why, as according to PC Mag, because the symbols used for energy in the game resembles the Star of David, which everyone knows is connected to international Zionism and is Israel's national emblem. Promoting Zionism is a big no-no in many Middle Eastern states for obvious geopolitical reasons. It didn't matter to Saudi clerics that the resemblance was unintentional. So there's things like that. But
there's a sillier
we're talking
version
about, like,
of that with the Satanic Panic and D&D.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why the game was thought to be satanic in the first place is because if you look through the books, like, you and I benefit from being able to just pull up like wiki articles and be able to get all the text from the published material just at our fingertips. And so, you could probably play D&D and never ever come across one of the actual books, right? But the books, when they get to like the spell section, so again, spells, of course, automatically, triggering some folks. But like Gary Gygax in the original like edition of D&D, he just ripped off the spells from like occult symbols that he like researched.
Yeah.
So he like threw these just occult symbols, and they were just like, he's like, oh yeah, occult symbols, spells, like this all works, right? And parents were like, the occult. So
gosh, yeah.
Now that's a sillier version, but what you're saying is actually like, it's culturally insensitive to. In some cases, if the content is culturally insensitive, you may think from your perspective it's silly to ban it, but maybe it's not for people of that culture. And so a lot of games get banned because localization never happened correctly, right? We had a whole podcast, and one of the reasons why localization is important is to prevent things like that.
Yeah, and that was one of my points for good reasons why things get banned is the historically sensitive content, where like depictions of the Nazi flag or like what happened in what actually happened in World War II. Like China banned Call of Duty World War II because of depictions of how the war unfolded, and then there was another game that actually it's Battlefield 4, which is kind of a more recent game, was banned in China because of how China was represented in the game, which I totally understand. Like if someone made a game that made me look like a complete not good person, for lack of family-friendly words, like I wouldn't want that game to be out there. And of course, the governing agency that like patriotism and like now China's censorship is a problem. Like I will say, like the
I was gonna say that to me falls closer. Honestly, that falls more in the bad and or complicated, right? Like I understand from their point of view, sure, but on the other hand, if a game is just presenting a historical reality of something.
Right.
Then
that's is it objectively true? Then there shouldn't be censored.
Or even if a game's presenting an idea that a governing body disagrees with, and I mean not again, as long as that idea doesn't incite violence, maybe it just simply promotes a certain life philosophy, right? Or criticizes a certain religion, then those things like should not. In the free marketplace of ideas, which is what we believe the a healthy society is founded upon, that is what we call censorship. So transitioning us over to the bad reasons, I think any idea that challenges a governmental authority or the status quo of a certain religion, those things shouldn't necessarily be banned as far as I'm concerned, because that's censorship. That's the government saying we don't want you to have these ideas. Because if you have these ideas, you might challenge our control over people, and that's very bad. That's very really bad. Yeah, right. Real exactly. Bad. So yeah, those are things that like that's a fine line to me, right? So like the Zion one is a little different because Zionism in particular, it's not just criticized, it's not anti-Semitism, right? Like Saudi Arabia banning it, they weren't being anti-Semitic, right? Because some people might interpret it as like, well, what's wrong with the Star of David? It's like, oh, the Star of David in particular to those people represents like an invasive influence and an overreach of the state of Israel's like power, and therefore it's I to me it's at the very least falls in that complicated range. Whereas like China banning a game that I mean, it's just like it's the China banning a game because it challenges China exceptionalism, right? Like their version of American exceptionalism is something that scared that weak governors do when they are terrified of ideas.
That's true,
in my opinion. So
but
you're right, it's a fine line. It's tough because I would agree that like if you were to just release a game that was just like, let's kill Native Americans wholesale, like, right, it's fun to kill Native Americans, like that would be something that should get banned because historically
that is a much better example highlighting what I was trying to articulate than the China thing. Because I think the China example was an example for a different discussion that we'll have in a minute. Yeah. You're right. So that's exactly what I was getting at.
Totally
it was like
insensitive.
A game that represents a specific people group that poorly, right? Yeah.
Right. Or if it was a game where you were like running a plantation and had to buy some slaves to get the good crops out in time.
Gosh,
it's like that would be right. That would be a game that, as far as I'm concerned, should be banned. And you might say, again, well, why not just let it die to capitalism? It's like, but it won't, because there are enough people in this country that will get it because it's quote triggering and because it's like it offends,
and they'll Twitch stream it and they'll talk about it and they'll give it a platform and they'll echo it all.
Will exactly. So it's just like it's like and we have to be careful not to fall into the what I call or you and I've had this discussion a lot. Like we have to be careful not to fall into thought policing, but the line to me is like when it's stuff that's intentionally meant to like isolate and harm an entire people group that is about something they can't change about themselves, then by all means it's like, no, we need to like cut that out. Like a stronger hand is needed than the free market's hand.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yep.
So anyways,
and I added another bad reason, or some reasons why games are banned that are bad. I put censorship of enriching human stories is bad. Stuff dealing with addiction, abuse, violence, etc. And the reason why I say it's bad is because those things, addiction, abuse, and violence, are beneficial for society to share and consume those stories to see like how that unfolds in natural, normal like storytelling, relationship stuff. And there's some overreach with like, I think that was actually we started this whole topic because Australia banned a game called RimWorld, and it had like some drug abuse, like. That was kind of they were hung up on like you could use drugs.
Reasons,
but apparently the developers repealed it and they won, so it's not banned anymore in Australia. But the reasons what they highlighted were that yes, you can use drugs in the game, but it's like cartoony, it's not ultra realistic, and it always results in bad things. Like you have problems that the game allow. I don't know a whole lot about RimWorld. I've heard it's
as
awesome.
Opposed to like BioShock, where it's like inject the drugs to get superpowers,
right? And that was like not looked at all as a problem. And so
there were other reasons why it was banned as well, and we'll get to RimWorld here in a second. But I'll say there are some what I would say complicated. Right, I put a whole section for complicated reasons why games might get banned, and this is should lead us nicely into RimWorld. But sometimes games are banned because the content challenges like a status quo or a zeitgeist or certain dogmatic beliefs, right? This would be your games getting banned because of certain religious organizations like this paints us in a bad light, right? It's and or on the other end of the spectrum, this paints this, political move. This paints unions in a bad light or whatever, right? Anything on that typically is associated with the left that's sort of like commonly accepted, where it's like, hey, this criticizes ideas that we value. It's like, no, that should not be banned. It shouldn't be banned just because it criticizes it. Again, that's a circumstance where it's like, yeah, just vote for your dollar. Like we'll vote with your dollar on it because no one is being hurt actively by challenging your worldview. Sorry about it. Get over it. Right. And that again, I say that, and I'm intending that to be for both people on the right and the left who, in the extreme cases, do those things, right? Like, oh, this offends my religion, or oh, this offends my politics. get over it, right? Like unless it's harmful, actively harmful, and inciting violence towards people. If it is just if it's just criticizing something you like hold dear, that's your pet politics, like, sorry, get over it.
And yeah, you should be inviting voices from all areas of the spectrum everywhere.
Exactly.
And that's actually like a thing from the left that like
Right.
you want diversity in your storytelling. You want to hear
Right.
from LGBTQ people. You want to hear from non-white people. You want to hear from white people. Like
As
you
long
want to
as
hear
they're saying the messages you already want to hear, as long as they're saying your words coming out of their mouths, that's all right. There's
their own words, I should say.
right,
Like,
exactly. Yeah. So there's but there is also lines there, and that's why I put it in complicated. Like there are lines where it's like, okay, yeah, but if your game goes beyond like criticizing, I don't know, identity politics to actually like being, borderline harmful or presenting, LGBTQ people in a in a caricature, like as caricatures or as just
offensively, yeah.
right. Yeah, then it's like, okay, well, you're not just criticizing an idea, you're not just criticizing a kind of politics, you're actually criticizing the people, and it's like I still don't think that this should be banned, but it is in poor taste, right? So that's why it's complicated. Right. The other thing is the other complicated area that we're definitely going to get into with RimWorld here is the idea of user generated content, right? If your game like Minecraft, if your game allows for user generated content, and the very first thing people do with that is make a giant swastika, like,
yeah,
who is at fault and who should be like, should the game be banned because people can come in and make something abhorrent out of it? And so that's where it's complicated, right? Like that's where moderation is expected, but you can't always do that, right? Sometimes people have like Minecraft, people like the game encourages you to make private servers, run it on private servers and stuff. So anyways, so that's where, like I said, it's complicated. So let's talk about RimWorld. This is kind of what inspired this topic because my buddy Shane, shout out to Shane. Shane, we're talking about RimWorld. We're dedicating an entire segment to one game, the one game you want us to talk about that neither of us have played, but I've watched him play it. It's pretty funny. I watched him play it a lot back when we worked in the same office. But yeah, RimWorld was banned in Australia, and that's kind of he brought this to my attention. It was banned in Australia for a number of reasons, one of which was drug use, which you had already talked about, but also because, to my last point about complicated things, one of the reasons why it was banned is because there was a lot of user-generated mods that added, like, like you could murder children, right? Like you could kill, so there's the base game, you can't kill children, but and again, we're talking about like cartoon, like top-down isometric characters, like they're not realistic looking at all, but nevertheless, it is still the idea that like you can do some pretty terrible things to, your citizens in RimWorld. The argument and why they ended up winning this ban suit or whatever was because they made the argument, this is user generated content. The base game does not allow you to do this, so it should be fine, right? So so they ended up getting unbanned. But again, one of the reasons I want to talk about it is because it's such a complicated example, because then immediately almost, this is where Shane, like, he like called me. He was like, this is so crazy to me. And this is crazy. When he brought it up, that's what inspired this topic, is because he called me to tell me that RimWorld, like a week after getting unbanned, like winning their ban suit, they then announced an expansion, like an official expansion from the main creators of the game that added child killing into the game or whatever. And it's like, are you guys kidding me? You you fought this tooth and nail so that it got unbanned in Australia, and then you immediately go and add the thing that will get you banned again. It's just like,
oh geez,
it's ridiculous. So anyways, what are some other examples that you can think of games that have been banned for good or bad reasons? And for each one, we can talk about why it may be good, bad, or complicated.
I'll highlight a different aspect of banning. It's not really a full ban, but there's like recalls on games sometimes. So Grand Theft Auto San Andreas famously came out in 2004. And if you are familiar with that time, there was a thing called hot coffee that was embedded in the code of the game that modders went and unveiled. And it was a intercourse simulator built into the code. And of course, Rockstar was brought under a lot of scrutiny, and they were told to get rid of it. So they had to patch the game. They recalled the copies as best as they can. The original copies are still out there, but as far as any digital distributed games, like those were patched and the code was completely removed. And then another like interesting story was Silicon Knights, the developer behind like Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem, and other things, made a game called Too Human on the 360. and followed by another game called X-Men Destiny. Come to find out, Epic Store, not Epic Store, Epic the company, saw that they had plagiarized the Unreal Engine. And so those two titles were completely banned, recalled, removed from store shelves, and like removed entirely from society. Like you can't play that, like that they're gone. I have a copy of Two Human. I don't know how strong it was. So the thing in America, specifically United States, is that if something like that, if a ruling happens and retailers aren't allowed to sell it because the company is not allowed to distribute it, the company has to do a recall, which demands you and me, the players, to like send their game back, which we're not going to do. There's no law enforcement whatsoever. Like, okay, sure. So you recall the game, all the retailers send back every copy. It's no longer allowed to be sold, and they have to cease and desist and destroy all copies, which is, it's a weird, kind of interesting. Another thing that happened was there was kind of an explicit game in 2004 as well with young female models. The game is called The Guy Game. If you remember on Comedy Central, there was like The Man Show. Sure. I think it was like something like that. I don't think they're related, but so there's this game called The Guy Game, and there was an actress who was filmed underage, presented in the game without her permission, and so she had sued, and that game was also like removed from store shelves and like recalled and stuff. So lots of weird stuff happening when it comes to those kinds of things. I also want to highlight another interesting, as I was doing some research, United Arab, I don't know how to pronounce the word,
Emirates, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Emirates, the United Arab Emirates has a list of games that they have banned, but specifically what I want to call it was Spec Ops The Line. Came out on PS3, it was published by 2K Games and Xbox 360, but banned likely due to the game's fictional depiction of the United Arab Emirates' real-life city of Dubai, Emirates, in the state of ravage and destruction. So just because like Dubai was in a state of ravage and destruction, fictionally, the game was banned. But unlike other banned video games, the NMC had extended their focus for this title, going far as to issue, I don't know what the TRA is, the Telecommunications Digital Government Regulatory Authority, to block the game's official website and subsequently prevent the title from being distributed throughout the rest of the GCC, which is the Corporation Council for the Arab States of the Gulf, as well as Jordan and Lebanon. Even local retailers were unable to sell the game via their online shops. The game remains unavailable via digital platforms such as Steam and PSN, and it is still available on PSN in Qatar and Kuwait. But that was specifically a game that was called out that you weren't allowed to own it. So the ban went all the way down to like if you were caught with a copy of the game, like you could have it removed from you or face legal trouble. That's the only game on this huge list.
Yeah.
Big list of games banned from the United Arab Emirates, but Spec Ops The Line for some reason was like more banned. Like that's what I'm talking about, like the granularity between things. So there's a million examples of banned games for various reasons. Germany has a huge ban across all Nazi representation. So like Wolfenstein 2 and even the Left 4 Dead 2 hand symbol on the cover had to be localized specifically for Germany for Nazism type like hand symbols, which is wild. But that's like super localization. That's not banned. That's just like copies of the game have to be changed. So replace the Nazi symbol with like an iron cross or a triangle. And that I wanted to bring happens.
Up Belgium because Belgium banned Phantasy Star Online 2, FIFA 17, Gears of War 4, Mario Kart Tour, and Roblox, as well as several other games due to the usage of loot boxes, which constitutes gambling under the country's existing laws. So that's one that we had not even like actually highlighted, is when certain games violate laws. Now, granted, a lot of these countries would say that their censorships are our laws, right? Like China would say it's against the law to criticize China, and the United Arab Emirates would say it's against the law to depict Dubai in a ruined state or whatever. But in this case, it's like, they just have laws about gambling and, having it in video games or whatever. And so these games are banned there because of that, right? Yeah. So that's another reason why a game might be banned, is if, a country has different laws than the one that it was designed in, and that game violates those laws for one way or another. So we'll probably see more and more of this, right, going forward, because games are just proven to be so influential, and so mostly influential on people's like addictive tendencies and stuff. So I think more and more laws become nuanced around the world around what constitutes like a violation, then in that regard, then I think that more and more games will be banned for reasons like that, right? Whether it's like,
Yep.
no, this is actually harmful. This type of content is harmful to people, so it's banned. So that's an interesting one as
And
well. So
there was a couple more. China banned Animal Crossing New Horizons, the newest one,
yeah,
because the example you highlighted earlier of user-generated content, because the game's online, like people were posting anti-government messages in the game with custom pattern tool,
exactly,
and they were like protesting. So I thought that was interesting. And then
Yep.
in Iran, Battlefield 3 was banned because of a fictional U.S. invasion of Iran. Which even before the ban, many retail stores were removing copies of the game from their shelves. So like lots of sensitivities around Iran, Iraq, U.S. like invasion, like those things. So interesting, right? Other countries have all, and like, oh, of course, we never even talked about like the depictions of violence ban. The fact that Mortal Kombat like stood up is the reason we have the ESRB in America. But of course,
it almost happened here, right? Like this is an example of it almost, right? The Supreme Court ruled in favor where they were trying to restrict the sale of violent video games, which is for all intents and purposes a ban.
Yep.
And this was by California law. But they nixed it. So they stopped it. So yeah, I mean, we don't have any bans that happen to that level, right? But we do, but like you said, there are still the recalls that happen here.
Yeah.
Depending on what the game is. So
just talking about American government really quick, specifically with America and like why it's different here, because you can go on the Wikipedia page, just like Google like list of banned video games, and you'll see every country and the stuff that they ban and why. You won't see the United States on there because we're unique in the world that we have the First Amendment, right? We have a government protection against or a government protection for free speech in America, which means like government agencies can't come in and say your depiction of this thing is bad. We have free speech, but that does not stop like Sony or Nintendo or Microsoft or any company or retailer, Best Buy, Target, to make a decision for themselves. So like Target is totally allowed to stop the sale of anything they want, which is why you don't see adult only rated game. That is an ESRB rating, adult only, it's AO. 95% of retailers won't even sell them. They won't put them on their shelves at all. But you can still get them. They're not government banned. You're not going to you're not going to be fined by the government, and you're not breaking a law if you buy them. It's just like highly regulated. It's like on the darker market. I don't even know where you would get adult only games. I know there's some stuff like on Steam. You can get some things that are kind of like questionable, and people like will question Valve, and they're like, because there's stuff on Steam you can't get on Sony and Microsoft, etc. And of course, you can always buy games like right off their website, download it, and install it manually, however you would like on your PC. But so that's a very unique like United States stance on what like First Amendment protections are. I know that's a hot topic in our country.
And I was reading just really quick because I was curious, and I just did a quick Google search to see like, is United States the only country that and though other countries have constitutions or equivalent documents that say you have the right to free speech, the United States apparently is the only one where a constitution says not you have the right to free speech, but Congress cannot make laws taking away your right to free speech.
Yeah,
it's fascinating.
Right?
That wording is very fascinating.
Yeah,
and I do think that wording gets us into trouble a lot.
Yes,
not saying that it should be the other way around. I'm just saying that like this same thing that's like, yep, we don't have very many banned video games in our country is the same, like because of that same reason, because of that same language, it's like we have all these other difficulties as a country.
Yeah, we do.
Because of that very language. Congress cannot make laws to take this away from you. It's like, oh my gosh, okay, well, then we're going to run into problems with that down the line at some point.
Yep.
So,
yeah.
Anyways, cool. Well, I want to hit that last, and part and parcel of that, I want to hit that last question here. What do you think about the banning? What do you think about the idea of banning games in general? Do you think should happen more often? Do you think it should happen less often? Do you think bans should be a last resort? And how can banning a game backfire?
I think the ramifications of banning a game can be pirated, right? So like you welcome piracy. So if you're a company and you ban something, you're like, okay, well, they're going to get it either way, right? People are going to get their hands on this thing whether you ban it or not. And banning it can sometimes the negative attention is still attention. So like it bubbles up in the headlines and like,
oh yeah,
people are going to go after it with more fervor.
Streisand effect, right? Yep.
Yep, exactly.
We did a whole
don't shine a
podcast
light on
on
it.
it.
Yeah, we
Yep.
did. Yeah, it was great. So of course that's how it can backfire, because you can get the message out there louder by shedding light on it.
Well, and you make it forbidden, so people who wouldn't
Right.
normally be interested in it now suddenly are very interested in it, right? Like,
Yep.
there is a game whose name is so abhorrent that I won't even say it.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
But
Yeah.
it is a game that is
Because
about
of the R.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a game that is about violence towards women, and it is, but I wouldn't have even known about it had it not been talked about, right? Like, and there are others that are like, oh, I don't value like women's right to safety, so to speak, right? Like, I don't value this. So therefore, in order to just make a political point or to just be, there are some people who just have that notion or desire to just be someone who is offensive, right? Like there's something there's something alluring about like I don't play by the right the social rules, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there are certain psychological profiles associated with that, right? Like oppositional defiant disorder and stuff like that. But like I'm not even going to blame it on that. I'm simply going to say some people just want to be like antisocial in that regard, right?
Yep.
And so yeah, those people are gonna now suddenly it's gonna be drawn to their attention if you ban it. And yeah, Streisand effect aside, if you make something forbidden fruit, so to speak, then it's always gonna draw a certain kind of personality, and then it makes it like it does that kind of martyr thing, right? Where it's like, oh, they got banned, so like now they can do no wrong in our eyes because they stood up to the man and suffered the consequences. And that's dangerous, right? That's really kind of dangerous stuff. It's like, it really is like a fine line of like, when do you just let it die because it's it's probably not a good game? And when do you like put the ban hammer on it? It's like, and smarter people than you and I do that math, so to speak. And even still sometimes get it wrong. And sometimes you can't know until hindsight.
Yeah.
Therefore, I do think that bans should be a last resort. I think there are much more. I mean, we talk all the time about how games are like killed, like dead on arrival because of circumstances outside their control. That like there are other sneakier ways, I think, of like getting games to go away that you don't want. That also technically don't fall in the line of censorship, right? Where it's, yeah, I don't know. There are sometimes when I'm like, you could be more sneaky about this, guys, and still get the same result.
You could, right? I think one of the good things about banning, I don't think it's a last resort. I think it could be a first resort, actually. Something like the game that we just talked about that begins with an R, that's violence towards women. Like immediate ban. Like the moment that comes out, ban it, because it does create barriers of entry for people getting it in mass. Right?
Yeah.
So
right.
in order to get it, you have to go through hoops. You have to figure out a way to get around the ban to get the game. And while it might attract attention and it might attract those people to have a little more fervor to get it, you're removing so much of the curation people who are just like, oh, what's that? Or like a kid.
Right.
Lord forbid, like a kid like sees it, right? Because it's gone. It's not on any storefronts. It's not in the public realm anywhere where people are operating on the internet unless they go look for it. And I think that's a good choice. Like that would be like an example of
I'm not saying that
right
it should never be banned, but I think it should be like a last resort and reserved for just the absolute worst of the worst. Like this is like, we
I see what you mean. Right.
Scorn upon you. Like you've
so the Christians go out and like don't like The Witcher 3. Let's not ban Witcher 3.
No,
Let's have a conversation. Is that what you mean? Like,
yes, but like also again, you and I aren't necessarily going to have a problem with that. I would challenge just because a game like, maybe espouses certain Republican beliefs, like doesn't mean it should automatically get banned. It means you probably won't buy it, but maybe not get banned, right? Just because it has ideas you don't like, right? Or find distasteful.
I feel like Far Cry 5 was in this crosshairs for this kind of conversation. And of course Far Cry 5 shouldn't be banned, but I haven't played it and I don't really know. Some people were really up in arms about how like alt-right people were represented in mass with like mixed, so alt-right ideologies blended with normal Christianity apparently was a thing in the game. And so there was a lot of backlash from regular people who aren't alt-right, like saying, this is not fair to them. But the game just had a lot of discourse about it online, a lot of discussions, articles, headlines, etc. You can go look all that up. But I agree that should not have been banned. There's no reason to get there. So in that situation, depending on how problematic it got or how problematic it was, there's a threshold for like banning.
Most AAA games are for overall, they're going to have enough There's enough money poured into them from huge corporations that are invested in them selling well that they're never going to be in danger of this in the United States, right?
Right.
And not that this is a big problem in the United States in the first place, but like most of them are going to do the math and try to figure out how far up to that line they can get that will make the game compelling enough to sell, while still also being like, how palatable is it that we can still sell it in most countries without getting banned, right?
Yep.
And they're gonna have they're gonna have whole departments that are like, nope, can't do this. Standards and practice. That's what standards and practices departments are for,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah, and localization.
Exactly, and that's so that's never gonna. Again, not to say that AAA games don't get banned, because they obviously do. We just went through a whole list of
some, and that was like the tip of the iceberg. Yeah,
but again, like the company's doing the math, they're like, yeah, we're not looking for a lot of sales in the United Arab Emirates, right?
Right.
So we're willing
like
to...
let's please Europe, so the UK, United States, Japan, then like Brazil and China. Those are like the other kind of secondary markets. If you can get all 5 of those to be like on, then you're golden.
You're
like
good.
That's it.
Exactly.
You're gonna make money.
So
that's
I mean, this really applies much more to like the indie space. I think, as far as what we're talking about, anything that would ever like touch our shores. Hence the RimWorld example, but.
Man, I kind of don't want to buy RimWorld now. That's kind of stupid to like add that
I don't
mode.
Remember. Now I might be misrepresenting it, but that was mine. But again, I was just basing it off of what I like. It was a conversation that that did happen weeks ago. But I remember specifically being like, wait, they're adding the thing that they got, or maybe it was the drug use thing, right? Maybe it was like more drugs. I don't remember specifically, but it was something where it was just like. Okay, guys, you just fought this battle, right? Like, do you really want to do this again?
But there you go. I just exercised a right as a consumer to be like, maybe I don't want to support that game, like we did with Blizzard and the whole Hong Kong protests. Of course, we were for human rights. So, like, should Blizzard have been banned in the United States entirely? Well, there's a case that could be made for that to raise awareness of the humanitarian efforts going on in Hong Kong, right? Like, maybe. But that's not our call. The best thing we could do as consumers is be like, maybe I don't want to buy their game.
Right.
Or like,
that's the difference between a ban and a boycott. When it's entirely grassroots user led, that's a boycott. So, anyways, cool. All right. I still think it should be as a last resort, right? Like, I think it should be one of those things where it's like it shouldn't be like we shouldn't always see it. If we start seeing it through the lens of this, this offends my if it's always this offends me, it should be banned. Then we're no better than China, right? Like we have to be Clearly, a better society than China,
right?
Not because of anything wrong with Chinese people, but because their government has become tyrannical. So we have to be better than tyrants, right? We just have to. We cannot be tyrants, and if we can. And banning it tends to be and has in the past been the tool of tyrants. So like, let's try not to use it except in the most extreme examples where it can actually protect people. That to me is where what should be reserved for. So anyways, cool. Well, that's our show. We want to hear what your thoughts are on bans. Should we ban more things? Should we ban less things? Should we be sneakier about it and just find ways to should we just go all FBI, KGB, CIA and just like make those developers disappear into the night? That's what I want to hear.
Whoa.
I want to hear those ideas.
Whoa,
that's like thinking next level. Let's disappear people instead of ban them, because that's
Yikes.
also not tyrannical.
Not at all.
Not at all. So yeah, let's hear those thoughts and more. We're just disappearing them to like we're gonna give them a nice condo, set them up with a nice condo in Brazil. That's what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, make them disappear in a fun way. Why not?
Yeah, in a fun way. They can just play video games all day.
The banned ones.
Yep. That's developer prison.
Right?
All right. Developer jail. Go to developer jail. Yeah. We want to hear what your thoughts are, listeners. So, Termite, where can they share their thoughts if they have them?
You can tell us all about how Silent Snake whispered you away over at Whisked. I meant whisked. Whisked you away, not whisper. Why did I say whisper? Like whisper.
I don't know, it made me thought of the Final Fantasy VII remake with the whispers.
Oh, yeah. Oh, hey, that's cool. Anyway, 80bitpodsmash.com.
Like it kind of worked.
It does. Is our landing website, 80bitpod.com, where we have links to all of our social media outlets, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, Twitter, Reddit. I think I said that already. Yeah, we have subreddit. I said that twice. TikTok and Discord. We're everywhere. And the links are all, there's a link tree. You can just go find everything you would need to give us your thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, and ideas and reactions to our show and our thoughts and what you think. Please go do that. We've had a lot of cool discourse on Discord. I wonder why they named the app that. Over the Game Awards, and that was an awesome conversation that we were having, and I'd love to see our Discord pop when it does. I'm very interested and intrigued and want to keep typing into the void of Discord, but go check us out. You can also find links to our podcast because it launches every Monday at midnight. We have a once a week drop of a new topic that you might care about and how it relates to video games. And you can find that at 80bitpodsmash.com with links to Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, etc. That's it. 80bitpodsmash.com. Go check us out.
Huzzah! Next week is Christmas, so we'll be opening our Christmas presents. And
one more
we'll
week
talk
till
about
Christmas.
We'll talk about ice and snow as a video game mechanic. So, like, we did an episode a long time ago about, like, wintry games. Like, the aesthetic of winter in games was what it more was like. This is more like ice and snow physics, right? And how do they render them in games? And, like, what kinds of mechanics.
Tessellation. That's my favorite. We get to talk about that.
Yep.
Yay!
And, like, you know, programming slippery surfaces versus non-slippery surfaces. What does that look like? So that should be fun, I think, to talk about from kind of that more of a technical point of view. And that's what we'll do for Christmas. And we'll see you then.
With that, we will see you next week.